We are counting down the days to Rebelcon, and virtual passes are now available at an early bird discount of $200 off the normal ticket price. This virtual pass gets you live access to all general sessions with our expert keynote speakers, as well as links to view the sessions later. This deal will end soon, so get your Rebelcon virtual passes now. Hit the QR code for more info or visit rebelcon.marketrebellion.com.
Good morning, I'm Pete Najarian. This is the Take for Market Rebellion on this Monday morning. And Monday, not looking so great. As a matter of fact, it didn't look too great on Friday either. We had a market that was actually under pressure right out of the gate, down about 175 points for the Dow, continued to go in the wrong direction and continued to the downside, finishing nearly 300 points to the downside, down about 292. The NASDAQ, it actually basically just stayed in the same spot, but early on it was down, and then it stayed in a very, very tight range for the rest of the session. That was down 260 points. So percentage-wise, a far bigger move to the downside, certainly coming from the NASDAQ. You had crude holding on to that 90 level. We had major volumes, unbelievable volumes, once again in the options world. We talked about August. We've had some ups and a little bit of slows, but not too many. We're averaging a little over 40 million. How about 46.8 million contracts trading on Friday? An absolute monster day. And I continue to hear on television, on all the financial channels, well, we've got low volumes, we've got this, we've got that. Not in the derivatives world. That's where leverage is. That's where we live. And I'll tell you what, it is extremely active. We've had some slower days, but overall, when you look at what we're averaging per day, a very, very busy time. And matter of fact, right Friday, just unbelievable. I mentioned crude right around that 90 level. How about nat gas? Keep talking about nat gas for the right reasons, because nat gas just continues this steady move to the upside. Finished the day on Friday right around 9:30 or thereabouts. So having another good day of adding a little bit more and a little bit more to it. 2-year, 10-year, they continue to get a little bit higher, and it's starting, I think, just to have a little bit of effect on the markets that we're seeing. When you've got the 10-year up towards 3 and you get up and over 3, I think that will be another moment where we may see even more pressure on the markets. We'll see. We'll see if that's something that happens and plays out. But certainly that has been something that's starting to play out over the last few sessions, including today. How about that Bitcoin? Absolutely getting hammered. Now, we talked about this one after it made that move all the way up to 25,000. It broke back underneath 24,000 and has not been able to retreat or get back above 24,000. Matter of fact, down 8.5% on Friday, back down towards 21,300. So getting smacked around pretty good. From a newsy items perspective, how about this? How about Warren Buffett and what he's been doing with Occidental and the additional shares that he's been wanting, and then actually went out and said, look, I'd like to own 50% of this thing. That sent that stock up pretty nicely. And as a matter of fact, something he's been on the acquisition stage of for quite a long time now, all the way going back to preferreds and all these other things. Warren Buffett certainly having himself a pretty decent run in the energy space. Sectors, consumer discretion, down about 2%. That was Tesla. That was Amazon. We had financials down about 2%. Looking at names like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and Citi and Bank of America. We also had technology down, not quite 2%, but pretty close, down about 1.8%, all contributing to what we were seeing in the markets themselves. It was Meta, it was Apple, it was Netflix, it was Google, all those names pulling a little bit down. And when all of them are moving in that same direction, you're going to get that kind of a move, a nearly 2% move to the downside. We had it in communications as well, throwing names like Snap and Pinterest and some of those. Materials as well, down nearly 2%. Matter of fact, Nucor, you take a look at U.S. Steel, they were all getting pounded. Freeport Mac, throwing Cliffs, all of them pulling back fairly dramatically. As a matter of fact, the only area that really had any signs of green at all throughout the day was healthcare. And what were some of the names that were leading that? Well, it was Lilly, it was J&J. You throw in some of the biotech names like Seagen and maybe a Vertex, and you get the idea. Occidental had a nice day. We look over at GM, had a pretty nice day. What wasn't having a good day last Friday, though, some of those cruise ships, once again, they were under pressure. You look at Carnival, look at Norwegian, you look at Royal, all under pressure. We also looked over at the semiconductors that had a little bit of a struggle as well. NVIDIA kind of leading the charge there. We had Airbnb, we had Lucid sticking with some of the EV space. Lucid on a little bit of a pullback. We had Nike, we had Boeing. You get the idea. Today we come in, markets, as I say, looked about just like they did on Friday, just continued to get pounded to the downside. You look at the 2 and the 10-year, again, a little bit closer to that 3% for the 10-year. And you look over at the 2-year, boy, 3.3, that's a pretty decent move in a fairly short period of time. But what really stands out as we're watching the markets tumble, as a matter of fact, we started the day down about a little over 300 points in the pre-market, 200 for the NASDAQ. We're now down about 270 in the NASDAQ and about 500, nearing at least 500 to the downside for the Dow. So you can understand we're seeing a little bit of that momentum pick up. I'll tell you what else has got momentum to the upside in this case, Nat gas. Take a look at Nat gas. Nearly hit 10 today. As a matter of fact, hit levels that we hadn't seen since about 2008. Gives you a little bit of an idea why we've been highlighting Nat gas now here on the take for this long period of time, because it's been moving. It's been moving oftentimes with crude to the upside, but it's continued that move despite the fact that crude has pulled off. Crude was up over there towards 120s. It pulled back to the hundreds. And here we are today. It started off the day around 90. We next had it around 88. Then we got to 86s. I saw right before coming on, it did bounce back above that level and back towards 87. But you can see crude oil definitely having a very, very volatile, very interesting day early on. Where is that volatility coming from? Look at the volatility index. We closed around those 20s, as I talked about last week. We were hovering up or down that either side of 20. We're over 23 today when you look over the volatility index, and take a look at the VXN. The volatility for the NASDAQ, that is very near that 30 level once again, and a pretty big move, well over a 9% move to the upside for that one. Bitcoin still holding around where it was on Friday. So in other words, not much of a rebound for that, but also still some of the pressure to the downside is really not there either. Just kind of hanging right around where we closed up on Friday. So we look at every single sector in the red early on. That's something that stands out. We also look at consumer discretion continues to slide. It was down 2%, down 2.6%. Communications down about 2%, down 2.4%. I look over at technology, down about 1.8%, now down about 2.25%. You get the idea. Financials, the same thing, down 1.75%, now down about 2%. We can see that slide across the board as that's playing out. And as I said, at the time that I last looked, we had every single sector in the red. What's some of the newsy items that are really going on today? Well, we've got the Fed going to be a Jackson Hole. Everybody's talking about hearing what Chair Powell's going to talk about there. We've got early earnings this week that continue to roll on. Yeah, they're not over. They continue to go. We've got NVIDIA. We've got Salesforce from the tech side. We've also got some of the retail side as well. Bed Bath & Beyond, that name was a huge name for last week. Continues to be a name that's getting talked about, as we all know that story now, but that big, huge hit to the downside, I think it was down, 40%, something close to that. We've got DocuSign with a downgrade today. That's getting hit pretty hard as well. As a matter of fact, when you see what's getting hit to the downside, it's names like Netflix, it's Ford, Occidental giving back a little bit after that monstrous jump to the upside. We got Royal Caribbean, you've got Caesars, you've got Tesla, you've got DocuSign. DocuSign, as I mentioned, that's one of those names that's got a little bit of a downgrade today. Not everything is terrible. Moderna's to the upside. Those Chinese names having an unusual day today. They're actually to the upside and actually leading when you look at some of those names. Baidu, JD, NetEase, PDD, all in strong positive territory early on. And then in the fertilizer area, you've got CF and you've got Mosaic. Definitely at least giving a little bit of positive to a very, very negative tape that we're seeing right now. Every single stock in the Dow at one point earlier today was in the red. Every one of them. That is fairly unusual. Usually there's something that actually just sort of floats to the top, might be in some specific space that's away from what's going on in the markets. Not so much today. Every single stock in the Dow down into the red today. So that definitely stood out. Got two unusuals for you, and then we're going to get out of here. Don't forget, Rebel's Edge today, 1 p.m. Eastern time, 12 noon, high noon. John and I are going to get together with the Rebel's Edge. We're going to talk about 4 different topics. We're also going to hit you with 2 unusual options. We're also going to hit you with 2 sports-related stories. And we have some great stories. Last week, anybody who's following me around understands I was at Viking camp with the 49ers, a lot of good friends on the 49ers organization. Great group of people, John Lynch, all the way throughout their entire group, just a wonderful group of people. We had a great time out there, got a chance to watch people up close because those preseason games, might be talking about that with John on Rebel's Edge. Those are just absolutely almost unwatchable. But when you're in these practices that they schedule, now those get a little bit heated. We've seen a lot of fights, and we know how much people are fighting for their jobs. That is where it all really is happening right now when it comes to the NFL. Should be a lot of fun. So, start off with NKLA. Now, this is a name we've seen it run to the upside. We've also seen on these pullbacks. Had a great run recently with everybody was talking about the EVs. We talked about what was in that bill and all that billions of dollars that was going to be going towards all different types of clean energy and everything. Well, NKLA's pulled back. It's down. It's at 566 at this point in time. 16,000 of Friday's expiring 5.5 puts getting bought for, call it 20 cents. So that was something that definitely stood out. There was some good things, and that was one of them where we had some nice size. You could understand what the trade might be. And will it continue this path to the downside? That's going to have to be seen. But it does have this week to trade all 5 days. Then that does expire on Friday the 26th. WEBR is my next one. Yeah, it's the WEBR grills, baby. They've been all over the place. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of why this one becomes very interesting. They've got a 30% of their float is short, or somewhere close to 30%. The outstanding shares, there's about 18% short in this name. Sure does find itself in that category of many of these meme top stock type names. So that's something to keep an eye on. Stock's trading right around 850, and we had a buyer of 3,500 of the September 7.5 calls. What makes this interesting is, number one, they're going out to September. Number two, they're buying an in-the-money call. In other words, the stock is trading 8.5. These already intrinsically have $1 of value to the trade. They're going for $1.55 up to $2 was the buying that we were seeing in the 3,500 that were bought. Something just to keep an eye on, if nothing else. But we know exactly what's been going on with the meme stock world that we are in right now. It is no longer just a couple stocks. That list gets a little bit longer and longer every day. But understand, it is volatile. Those things can move up in a hurry, and they certainly can move back in a hurry, just like we were talking about with names like Bed Bath & Beyond and some of these other names, NKLA and some of the EV space. You understand that. You have a much better understanding. It takes a lot of discipline. I'm Pete Najarian. Have a great day of trading. I'll see you at the Rebel's Edge at 1 p.m. Eastern today. It's going to be great. John and I got a lot of great stuff for you. See you then.